Have you ever wondered why nitrogen is so crucial to our existence? This invisible, odorless gas makes up a whopping 78% of our atmosphere. Yet, despite its abundance, it's in a form most living things cannot directly use. So, why do we need it? Well, nitrogen plays a vital role in the building blocks of life. It's an essential component of proteins, the workhorses of our cells. It's part of our DNA, the blueprint of life, and it's in other vital biological molecules that keep us, and all life on Earth, ticking over. But there's a catch. Even though nitrogen is all around us in the air we breathe, most organisms can't use it in its atmospheric form. So, you might ask, how does this inaccessible nitrogen become available to life on Earth? That's where the nitrogen cycle comes in. The nitrogen cycle is nature's incredible process of making atmospheric nitrogen usable to living organisms. This miraculous cycle is the lifeblood of our ecosystems, ensuring that nitrogen, a critical element needed by all living organisms, is readily available. Let's take a bird's eye view of this fascinating process. The nitrogen cycle consists of four main stages: nitrogen fixation, nitrification, assimilation, and denitrification. Each stage, like an intricate dance, is coordinated by different types of bacteria, each playing a unique role in transforming nitrogen into a form that plants, animals, and other organisms can use. It all begins with nitrogen fixation. In this stage, nitrogen gas, which makes up a whopping 78% of our atmosphere, is transformed into ammonium by bacteria known as nitrogen-fixing bacteria. These microscopic heroes have a special ability to fix nitrogen gas into a form that plants can absorb. Next up is the nitrification stage. Here, other types of bacteria, referred to as nitrifying bacteria, convert the ammonium into nitrites and then into nitrates. These nitrates are a form of nitrogen that plants can readily absorb and use to grow. The third stage is assimilation. During assimilation, plants absorb the nitrates through their roots and use them to produce vital compounds like amino acids and proteins. These nitrogen-rich compounds are then consumed by animals, allowing nitrogen to continue its journey through the food chain. Finally, we reach the denitrification stage. Here, yet another group of bacteria, known as denitrifying bacteria, come into play. They convert the nitrates in the soil back into nitrogen gas, which is released back into the atmosphere, completing the cycle. So you see, the nitrogen cycle is a brilliant balancing act performed by nature, with bacteria as the main actors, transforming nitrogen from gas to nutrient and back again. This process ensures that life on Earth, as we know it, can continue to thrive. Now let's dive deeper into each step of this vital process. The first step in making nitrogen accessible to living organisms is nitrogen fixation. Let's delve into this process. Picture an invisible sea of nitrogen gas surrounding us. It's everywhere, constituting about 78% of the air we breathe. Yet most organisms can't use it directly. It's like having a gold mine but not the tools to extract the gold. So how do we get to this gold? That's where nitrogen fixation comes in. Nitrogen fixation is the process that changes inert nitrogen gas into a form that plants and other organisms can use. It's like a magic trick, turning unattainable nitrogen into the more accessible ammonia. But who performs this magic trick? It's the hardworking nitrogen-fixing bacteria such as rhizobium. These bacteria are like the unsung heroes of the nitrogen cycle. They have the special ability to convert nitrogen gas into ammonia, but they don't do this anywhere. They have their favorite spots: the root nodules of leguminous plants. Leguminous plants like peas, beans, and lentils provide a cozy home for these bacteria. In return, the bacteria take nitrogen from the air and convert it into ammonia, which the plants can use. It's a fantastic symbiotic relationship where both parties benefit. So, the nitrogen gas is taken from the air by the bacteria in the root nodules of these plants and converted into ammonia. The nitrogen has now been fixed, just like how you fix a loose part in a machine to make it work better. This ammonia can then be taken up by plants and used to make essential compounds like proteins and DNA. It's the first step in the nitrogen journey, making this critical element available to the living world. And that's nitrogen fixation for you, a process that turns an inaccessible gas into a usable form, thanks to the hardworking bacteria. With nitrogen now in the form of ammonia, we can move on to the next stage of the cycle. After nitrogen fixation comes the process of nitrification. Let's dive right in. Nitrification is a two-step process where ammonia, which is produced during nitrogen fixation, is converted into nitrites and then nitrates. This transformation is carried out by some very special bacteria. In the first step, Nitrosomonas bacteria convert ammonia into nitrite. Then, Nitrobacter bacteria take over, converting nitrite into nitrate. It's like a relay race, with each team of bacteria passing the baton to the next. working together to change ammonia into a form that plants can use. Here's an interesting tidbit. Most plants don't have a taste for ammonia or nitrites. They prefer their nitrogen in the form of nitrates. So these nitrifying bacteria play a crucial role in making nitrogen available to plants. But why is this so important? Well, nitrogen is a key component in amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. Without it, plants couldn't grow, and the whole food chain would collapse. Nitrogen is also a vital part of DNA, the genetic material that dictates how organisms will develop and function. Nitrification is not just important for plants and the food chain, it's also essential for our planet's health. Nitrogen in the form of nitrates can be absorbed by soil and water, helping to nourish ecosystems and support a diverse range of life. However, it's important to note that not all nitrates are used up by plants. Sometimes there's more nitrogen than plants can handle, leading to an excess of nitrates. This can cause problems like water pollution and algal blooms. But nature has a way of keeping things in balance. So after all this, you might be wondering, but what happens to nitrates that are not used by plants? Well, that's a great question, and it leads us to the next stage of the cycle. Stay tuned to find out more. The remaining stages of the nitrogen cycle are assimilation and denitrification. So what's going on in the assimilation phase? Well, plants and animals are taking center stage here. They absorb nitrates from the soil or water, and these nitrates are not just hanging around doing nothing, they are put to work. Plants use these nitrates to create proteins and other vital compounds. Animals then eat these plants and in turn absorb the nitrogen they need to build their own proteins. It's a fascinating transfer of nutrients, right from the ground up through the food chain. Now let's move on to the final stage, denitrification. Imagine there's a party going on in the soil and there are too many nitrates. At some point, the soil can't hold any more nitrates, and that's when our friendly neighborhood denitrifying bacteria step in. These bacteria, including one known as Pseudomonas, have a very important job. They take these excess nitrates and convert them back into nitrogen gas. But why is this important? Because it completes the nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen gas that these bacteria produce is released back into the atmosphere, ready to start the cycle all over again. It's like the circle of life, but for nitrogen. So in summary, assimilation and denitrification are two crucial steps in the nitrogen cycle. In assimilation, plants and animals take in nitrates and use them to create essential compounds. Then, in denitrification, bacteria convert any excess nitrates back into nitrogen gas, sending it back to the atmosphere. This keeps the balance of nitrogen in our environment, ensuring that there's always enough for plants and animals to use, but not so much that it overloads the system. And with that, we've completed our journey through the nitrogen cycle. So, let's recap what we've learned about the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen, a key element in life, is stored in reservoirs such as the atmosphere, soil, and oceans. The cycle begins with nitrogen fixation, where nitrogen gas in the atmosphere is converted into ammonia by nitrogen-fixing bacteria. This is the first step in making nitrogen accessible to living organisms. Next, through a process called nitrification, other bacteria transform this ammonia into nitrites and then into nitrates. These nitrates can be absorbed by plants and used to build proteins and other vital compounds. Then comes assimilation, where animals eat these plants, incorporating the nitrogen into their own bodies. Upon death and decay, decomposers return the nitrogen back to the soil as ammonia. Finally, denitrifying bacteria convert some of this ammonia back into nitrogen gas, completing the cycle. So there you have it, the nitrogen cycle, an essential process that makes life on Earth possible.